If you're thinking about buying a Rolex Pepsi GMT, now is the time.
Because everything points to the fact that at Watches and Wonders in Geneva this year, Rolex is going to discontinue the model.
They're only going to be getting more expensive. We know why they're discontinuing it. We know what they're replacing it with, but we don't necessarily agree on that strategy. This is a new little segment we're doing called Grand Complications, taking on the stickier subjects of the watch world. And today we're talking about none other than the Rolex Pepsi GMT.
Why?
Yeah.
Why would you do that, Rolex? Discontinuing one of your most popular models with crazy wait lists all over the world.
I think there's a few reasons. I think there's been production concerns about the bezel for the Pepsi. I think there is another classic GMT that they want to roll out. And I think because it's Rolex, they want to manipulate demand on demand.
Okay, fair. We know what model that is, but let's go back and talk about the first point, the production, or the challenges with the production, right?
Right. So back in the history of the GMT, when they first started doing the ceramic Serichrome bezels, it was the 116, 710, and the Lunette Noir, which is the all black, which from a production standpoint is much easier than the Pepsi.
Sure.
They can do bi-color bezels with a black base easier than with a blue and red dichotomy, for example.
So like the Batman.
Exactly. So yeah, the Batman is a great example of that. I don't exactly know why, and not like Rolex is ever going to tell us, why red and blue is so much harder than black and blue, for example.
Yeah.
But there have been troubles with it. Although I will say, we have a ceramic Pepsi now. It seems like they've solved that problem. But again, if you look online at the rumors, that's a lot of what they're pointing to is production troubles for the Pepsi. Although I don't think that's the only reason.
Sure. See, let's jump into the second point in a moment. I just wanted to say that as someone who has a Pepsi from the 60s, to me, this is like the GMT, the Rolex GMT, right?
Yeah, exactly.
We talked about this before. Like cutting this model or discontinuing your model, this model is like cutting your leg off. It's one of the most important models, in my opinion, one of the most important colors of this model line. So why would you do that and replace it with something that I particularly don't like as much as I like the Pepsi?
Yeah, I think it would be cutting a leg off, but I think if you are Rolex, you have other legs to stand on, not only like within other model families, but even within the GMT. I mean, we have the root beers still going. We have the Pepsi, which is going away, but we have the Batman as well. We have the new Sprite as well, which is not the sturdiest leg to stand on, let's say.
One side note, I have a couple of friends who have the new GMT. 3 or 4, all of them have the Pepsi. None of them have the Batman. Just Pepsi, through and through.
I'm team root beer through and through.
Next point.
But I think maybe another question is maybe there's a limit to how many GMT variations they want to have at one given time. It's like a one in, one out kind of system.
Or maybe if you go into the Rolex building, you don't see Pepsi vending machines, only Coke vending machines.
Is that what's coming next?
That's what they say.
That's what everyone's saying. And then that would solve the production problem of switching out the blue and the red to a red and a black. Here's my thinking. There are Coke fans out there, but for me, Coke is always going to be number 2.
Yeah, 100%. As I said, to me, the Rolex GMT Master is the Pepsi, and it always will be the Pepsi.
Yeah, when I think of Rolex GMTs, that's number 1. When I think of GMTs, period, that's number 1.
That's number 1, yeah. Because a lot of brands copied the blue and red from Timex to, I don't even know, a bunch of brands, even Seiko back then. So when you see a bezel and it's blue and red or red and blue, the inspiration comes from the Pepsi.
Yeah, and I would say you have a lot, if you look at other down market brands, you see a lot more red and blue bezels than you do black and red bezels.
And I remember, and I think you do too, when the new Pepsi came out, it was like the hottest thing ever for years. And then they changed the bracelet and it still was.
I think that moves us on to our third point of the marketing mindset behind this change. I don't think it's necessarily a production thing because they've already solved that. We have a ceramic Pepsi now. Pepsi was super popular before the Serichrome bezel. And then they came out with a white gold, I believe.
Yes.
And then it was, oh my God, finally a steel ceramic Pepsi. It was like the big thing. And they took their time deliberately working up to that.
Yeah.
And I think this is another instance of them controlling consumer sentiment, controlling production, controlling excitement. It's a puppet master kind of thing. This is what Rolex does. They control demand in order to manipulate consumer sentiment to their advantage. And guess what? The Pepsi might be going away, but it's not going away forever. And even if we're not super excited, you and I, about the Coke, the potential positive is this might open up another slot for another color bezel, another flavor. I think there's potential with the green and black, and there's a whole other rainbow of other bezels out there.
Grape juice,
Grape juice,
blueberry pancake. Well, that's not a drink, but that's a flavor.
Chocolate
and of course,
shake.
chocolate shake. But the blueberry is or was some kind of a mystery, so they could do that, right? Maybe do a white one, a white dial GMT.
There's a lot of directions they could take this in, and as annoying as it is, Rolex, I don't like it, but I do respect it. This is Grand Complications. I'm Thomas Hendricks.
And I'm Balazs Ferenczi with my Pepsi GMT.
We have more episodes on the way. Stay tuned.